Chateau Miraval was once a place of peace, love, and promise. Hidden among the hills of southern France, surrounded by vineyards and quiet countryside, it was where Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie chose to get married in 2014. At the time, Miraval felt like a symbol of everything they wanted their life to be: private, stable, and protected from the chaos of Hollywood. They raised their children there, hosted close friends, and even turned the estate into a successful winery. For years, Miraval represented unity, not conflict. But that image slowly faded after Angelina filed for divorce in 2016. What followed was not just the end of a marriage, but the beginning of a long and bitter legal struggle that would stretch across nearly a decade. At the heart of that struggle stood Miraval itself. Ownership of the estate became a source of tension almost immediately. Brad originally held a majority share through his company, while Angelina owned the rest. Later, Brad transferred part of his ownership to Angelina so they could share the property equally as husband and wife. At the time, it appeared to be an act of trust and partnership. But after the marriage collapsed, that decision became one of the most disputed moments of their relationship. The estate was no longer a shared home. It became a legal battlefield. In 2021, the situation took a dramatic turn when Angelina sold her entire share of Miraval to a third party without informing Brad beforehand. Brad strongly objected to the sale, claiming they had agreed that neither of them would sell their stake without the other's written approval. According to his legal filings, he believed the sale violated that agreement and placed the winery's future at risk. Brad's team described the move as hostile and harmful, saying it damaged his ability to manage the business and threatened its reputation. Angelina, however, saw the situation very differently. She argued that Brad had refused to buy her out unless she signed a wide-reaching, non-disclosure agreement. In her words, the NDA was designed to silence her about what she experienced during the marriage and the events that led to the divorce. From her perspective, selling her share was the only way to fully separate herself from a situation she felt had become emotionally and legally overwhelming. As the lawsuits continued, the conflict grew more complicated. Lawyers on both sides accused the other of hiding documents, delaying the process, and acting in bad faith. Court filings piled up. Claims of financial damage reached tens of millions of dollars. The case expanded beyond France and into international law, involving corporate rules in multiple countries. By 2024, the Miraval dispute was no longer just about property. It had become a symbol of how deeply broken the relationship had become. What once stood for love and family now stood for resentment, mistrust, and unresolved pain. For the public, the case played out slowly, often in confusing headlines and legal language. But for Brad and Angelina, it was a constant presence, a reminder that their shared past could not be easily untangled. While all of this was happening, Brad Pitt remained almost completely silent. He did not give interviews about the divorce. He did not publicly respond to accusations. His presence in the media was limited to red carpet appearances and brief legal statements issued by his lawyers. For nearly 8 years, he avoided speaking directly about the marriage, the divorce, or the distance that had grown between him and his children. That silence became part of the story itself. Some people saw it as restraint. Others saw it as avoidance. But either way, it was noticeable. The longer the silence lasted, the more questions it raised. And for many years, those questions went unanswered. That long silence finally ended in May 2025. After years of avoiding personal interviews, Brad Pitt appeared on the cover of GQ magazine and spoke openly for the first time about the divorce and its aftermath. It was not a dramatic reveal or an emotional confession. Instead, the interview felt quiet, controlled, and almost heavy. Brad did not speak like someone trying to win public support. He spoke like someone who had lived with the weight of the situation for a long time. During the interview, Brad confirmed that the divorce had been officially finalized in December 2024. He described it simply as something that needed to be done, without anger or celebration. When asked why he chose to stay silent for so many years, his answer was direct. He said that during the chaos of legal battles and personal loss, speaking publicly would only make things worse. For him, silence felt like the safest option. It was not about hiding. It was about avoiding more damage. One of the most powerful moments of the interview came when Brad spoke about his children. For years, reports had suggested that the relationship between Brad and his kids had become distant. In the interview, Brad did not deny that reality. He did not name his children or describe private moments. He did not blame anyone, including Angelina. Instead, he said he would always be there for them if they ever needed him. His words were calm, but they carried deep emotion. He added that no one gets married expecting to one day be separated from their children. That sentence alone captured years of pain in just a few words. It did not sound like self-pity. It sounded like acceptance of a loss he could not fix on his own. Brad also avoided discussing specific incidents that had been widely reported in the media. He did not revisit accusations or defend himself point by point. When asked about the past, he summarized it simply by saying that what happened, happened. That choice stood out. Rather than turning the interview into a legal argument or emotional attack, Brad focused on where he was now, not where he had been. He also spoke openly about sobriety, revealing that he had stopped drinking in 2016, around the time of the divorce. He described the years since then as a period of personal rebuilding. Meditation, reading, art, and quiet routines had replaced the fast-paced lifestyle he once lived. He talked about sculpting and spending time alone, not as an escape, but as a way to understand himself better. His tone throughout the interview was steady, almost numb at times. He did not sound angry. He did not sound triumphant. He sounded tired, reflective, and honest. Public reaction to the interview was mixed. Some people praised Brad for finally speaking and doing so without attacking anyone. They admired his calm tone and willingness to acknowledge difficult truths. Others criticized him, saying he still avoided taking full responsibility or addressing certain allegations directly. The debate reflected the larger public conversation that had followed the divorce for years. But regardless of opinion, one thing was clear. The interview was not a comeback. It did not feel like an attempt to restore his image or rewrite history. It felt more like a closing chapter, a moment where Brad finally added his voice to a story that had long been told without him. For Angelina, the interview did not prompt a public response. Sources close to her suggested she felt relieved that the divorce was officially over and had no interest in reopening old wounds. She continued focusing on her work and her children, maintaining the same private approach she had taken for years. In many ways, the interview marked the end of one chapter, not the beginning of a new conflict. Life after the storm looks very different for Brad Pitt. Professionally, he remains one of the most influential figures in Hollywood. His production company, Plan B, continues to create powerful films that shape modern cinema. Over the years, the company has been responsible for award-winning projects like 12 Years a Slave, Moonlight, The Big Short, and Women Talking. These films reflect a shift in Brad's career, from leading man to creative force behind the scenes. In late 2025, Brad is expected to return to acting in a major Formula One film produced by Apple Studios. Developed in collaboration with Lewis Hamilton, the project has been described as one of his most ambitious roles in years. For many, it represents a professional renewal. But outside of work, Brad's life has become far quieter. He now spends much of his time at his estate in Santa Barbara, far from red carpets and flashing cameras. His days are filled with simple routines: sculpting, gardening, reading, and keeping a small circle of trusted friends. Fame no longer seems to be the center of his world. Privacy has taken its place. In 2025, reports emerged that Brad is engaged to Swiss jewelry designer Ines de Ramon. They were first seen together in 2022, and over time, their relationship grew quietly, away from the spotlight. While Brad has not publicly confirmed the engagement, people close to him say this is the first time since the divorce that he has allowed himself to fully open up emotionally. The relationship has been described as calm, private, and grounded. Very different from the public romances of his past. Angelina Jolie, meanwhile, continues her own journey. She remains deeply involved in filmmaking, humanitarian work, and raising her children. She has worked internationally on projects that reflect her interests in human rights and storytelling. Her focus has remained firmly on her family's stability and well-being. Publicly, she has made it clear that she and the children have not returned to Miraval since the divorce. For her, that chapter appears firmly closed. As the children have grown older, their individual paths have become clearer. Some live abroad. Others have chosen to stay largely out of the public eye. Reports have noted that several of them have chosen to distance themselves from Brad, with some even dropping his surname. These choices have not been explained publicly, and both parents have respected their privacy. But the reality of that distance remains. It is a reminder that while legal battles can end, emotional healing often takes much longer. After 8 years of silence, Brad Pitt finally spoke. The legal fights surrounding the divorce and the winery may be nearing their end, but the story itself is far from simple. It is a story about love, loss, restraint, and the long shadow that personal decisions can cast over an entire family. Brad's interview did not offer easy answers or dramatic confessions. Instead, it offered something quieter, a reflection from a man who has lived through years of conflict and emerged changed by it. Whether relationships this fractured can ever truly heal remains an open question. Time, not courts or interviews, will decide that. For now, the silence has been broken, the words have been spoken, and what remains is the slow, uncertain work of moving forward. For many years, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were seen as one of the most powerful and admired couples in the world. Their story began in 2003 when they met on the set of the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith. At that time, Brad Pitt was still married to actress Jennifer Aniston, while Angelina Jolie had recently ended her marriage to Billy Bob Thornton. Although both stars insisted that nothing romantic happened during filming, their natural chemistry quickly caught the attention of the media. Every smile, every interview, and every appearance together was closely watched. the public began creating its own story, often without knowing the full truth. When Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston officially divorced in 2005, many people were already convinced that Angelina Jolie had played a role, even though the situation was far more complex than headlines suggested. Shortly after, photographs of Brad and Angelina together with Angelina's son Maddox in Kenya spread across the world, confirming that their relationship was now real. From that moment on, their private lives were no longer private. As the years passed, Brad and Angelina built a family that fascinated millions. They adopted children from different parts of the world, welcoming Maddox from Cambodia, Zahara from Ethiopia, and Pax from Vietnam. Later, they had 3 biological children together: Shiloh, born in 2006, and twins Knox and Vivian, born in 2008. To the outside world, their family appeared loving, open-minded, and inspiring. They often spoke about humanitarian work, global responsibility, and raising their children with respect for different cultures. The media presented them as the perfect modern family, one that represented unity in a divided world. Red carpet appearances showed smiling parents surrounded by happy children, and many believed they had achieved something rare in Hollywood: lasting happiness. However, life behind closed doors was far more complicated. Both Brad and Angelina had demanding careers that required constant travel, long working hours, and intense pressure. Raising 6 children while living under constant public attention was not easy. Every parenting decision, every family move, and every personal moment was analyzed by the media. Over time, stress began to grow. According to people close to the couple, disagreements about lifestyle, parenting styles, and career choices slowly increased. Even though they shared deep love for their children, maintaining balance became harder each year. What the public saw as perfection was slowly becoming fragile. In 2008, the couple purchased a large estate in the south of France called Chateau Miraval. The property was meant to be a peaceful escape from Hollywood, a place where their children could grow up away from cameras. Over time, it also became the home of a successful wine business. For several years, Miraval represented safety, family, and hope. In 2014, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie quietly married there in a small ceremony attended only by their children and close friends. There was no large celebration, no media event, and no public spectacle. To many fans, this moment symbolized stability and commitment after years of challenges. It seemed like they had finally found solid ground. But peace did not last, even after marriage. The pressures did not disappear. Travel demands increased, stress levels remained high, and emotional distance reportedly began to grow. By 2016, their relationship had reached a breaking point. In September of that year, Angelina Jolie filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The announcement shocked the world. Almost overnight, the image of a united family collapsed. What followed was not just a separation, but the beginning of a long and painful chapter filled with legal battles, emotional wounds, and public scrutiny that would last for years. The divorce filing in 2016 marked a dramatic shift in Brad Pitt's life. Just days before the filing, an incident occurred on a private flight from France to the United States that would change everything. According to legal documents submitted later, a disagreement between Brad and Angelina escalated during the flight. Angelina's team claimed that Brad had been drinking and that the argument became intense. Allegations were made involving verbal conflict and possible physical behavior. Their eldest son, Maddox, who was 15 at the time, was said to have stepped in during the argument. Brad strongly denied the more serious accusations, and details of what happened remain disputed. No clear, agreed-upon version of the event has ever been publicly confirmed. Because the incident happened in international airspace, authorities became involved. The FBI launched an investigation, while the Los Angeles Department of Child and Family Services began its own review to ensure the safety of the children. For Brad Pitt, this period was overwhelming. His personal life became the subject of constant news coverage. He underwent interviews, evaluations, and temporary restrictions regarding time with his children. For weeks, he lived under intense pressure while the world watched closely. Eventually, both investigations concluded without criminal charges being filed. There was not enough evidence to take further legal action. While this legally cleared Brad, the emotional and public impact could not be undone. During this time, temporary custody arrangements were put in place. Angelina Jolie was granted primary custody of the children, while Brad was allowed visitation under specific conditions. These decisions were made with the intention of protecting the children during a difficult transition. However, they also marked the beginning of a custody battle that would continue for years. For Brad, the most painful part was not the media attention, but the growing distance between him and his children. The family that once traveled the world together was now separated by legal rules and emotional walls. In the months and years that followed, Brad Pitt chose silence. He did not give interviews to defend himself or attack Angelina. He rarely spoke publicly about the divorce or the accusations. Later, he admitted that 2016 forced him to confront his own personal struggles. He acknowledged that his behavior had become unhealthy and that he needed to change. That year, he committed to sobriety and began working on himself privately. Friends later said that this period was deeply humbling for him. However, personal growth did not automatically heal